Hello, everybody. This is Peter from EDUardo, and as usual, I'm not alone today. Here is Gábor Füzér with me from Assessment Systems Hungary. And today we have again an expert talks, and we will talk about an interesting, really interesting topic is new trends in skill assessment and the technology. But before going into the topic, of course, it's fair to introduce my guest, Gábor, whom I know for many years through many projects together. And for me, he's always a kind of a guy who is making assessments. But of course, you are not only doing it, you are a psychologist, also you have an economist degree. So I think the best if you describe what you do, what your team does. Do you really only do assessments or you do other things as well?
Thank you. But yeah, by the way, it's totally correct. I'm a psychologist and an economist together, so a special hybrid, let's say so, which is, I would say, really, really useful in these times when we are, by the way, doing assessments for high level or key positions where, yes, you have to know human nature, but you always have to focus on these people and the environment they are operating at. And, when we are talking about key positions and key people, it's usually, affected by economy and other things. But coming back to me and my team, I'm from Assessment Systems Hungary, which is part of a bigger organization, Assessment Systems International. Guess what? Actually, what we are doing is not just focused on assessments, but no man is the woman, so it's part of our name. So yes, assessments were always an important integral part of our business and scope, and we are doing many different ways. So today we will be focusing on one specific topic, but there are many other ways, and we have experience in other areas with other tools, with other approaches as well. And because usually assessments are not just there to assess someone, and that's the story. There's always, how to say it in a politically correct way, a consequent management. So there are next steps, and there is a continuation of the story. So we are also doing developments and other projects, and we are also want to grab the whole thing. Like, yes, there's an assessment, but actually it's a talent project. The company would like to find the talents inside the company, and of course they want to develop them somehow, make them ready for the future, for a new position. And there is some trainings and workshops, etc. And then it's not just an assessment, it's a project, it's a chain, it's a process. And we also try to grab the whole process as well and do the other parts, as I've said, workshops, trainings. And sometimes these are just tools in order to create something bigger, something more useful and more meaningful, like the new talents of the future. And then the assessment is just a tool, like, a simple tool for another, position, for another profession.
Okay, so assessments are used for selection. That's one big area. And the other is when it's not a selection, or maybe it's an internal feedback. It could be an internal selection, but also a feedback to the participants, for example, what they need to learn further, which is necessary for the company. So these are both assessments. But if we concentrate on the selection type of assessment, can you just tell just some examples? What are typically required by customers, by project these days? So, like, what are the favorite topics of assessment?
Yeah. So, by the way, it can be a selection, or a development. These are the two big categories. And actually, when we are doing an assessment, it's a valid tool for both type of projects, for both type of journeys, let's say so. But a development is really a journey, at least in my point of view. But coming back to the assessed skills, so the things companies are looking for? Well, yes. I would say that there is a tangible change in the wind and in the temperature, and not just because of recent things around us, like COVID, mentioned many times, I guess, or the war, or in general the 21st century. So when it comes to bigger changes, I would say that these empathy-related things like customer orientation as well, interpersonal sensitivity, empathy, and all these social skills are becoming more and more important in the last 25 years, which is a much longer period than just the recent years. So we can also grab these trends, and it is becoming, as I've said, more and more important that your people, the people companies are looking for, should be a little bit more developed in interpersonal sensitivity, in agreeableness, in giving positive feedback, reflections to others, understanding their needs. That's interpersonal sensitivity, if I wrap it up. So that's also there. But I also have to mention some recent changes. And I would say that these changes are also seems to be valid, and not just because some things has happened, but I see them. They were already here before COVID, before these violent changes, and COVID just intensified the need for these skills. And what are the skills I'm talking about right now? How to deal with a complex situation, a complex environment, how to analyze data, but not just simple analysis, because analysis is always important for certain positions, especially for leaders, analysts, etc. But to analyze in a complex environment, to understand what is important and what is not, and to analyze in a very quick way, because it was always there to sit down and analyze and find out something. But right now, in these times, you have to do it extremely quickly and to arrive to certain valid conclusions in a very quick way. And the amount of information is just going bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's much harder to see through the avalanche of information someone has to analyze. But also it's about learning. It was also there as a sage or a sentence that companies are looking for people, not just in terms of what they know already, but what they can learn. And it became extremely important these days. So the things you know right now or at the point of your selection is, well, not totally invalid or indifferent, but companies are really looking for the learning potential in you, things you can learn, you can adapt to, you can understand, you can find conclusions, etc., and then to use this learning. That's very, very important, more important than your actual knowledge level or experience level. And another one, which I would say will not be a big surprise for you, this is change management. And yes, you can tell me that it was always there, because change is always there. Good companies are always changing. That's the most important thing in a company, to remain at least somewhat flexible. But if you think about the recent years, change management is like on the top. That I need people who can deal with the change, who can, go with the change, who can lead the change, not just, suffer from the change. And again, in a very complex, rapid environment where there are plenty of extra information, some of them are not useful, some of them are redundant. You have to analyze, you have to understand which one is important and which one is not. And you have to cope with this. And bring your company or take your company to the next level when we are talking about a leadership position. That's the ultimate goal. So, as I've said, there are tangible changes in skills companies are looking for these times. And because of that,
if I just let's imagine I'm a manager and I say you're a consultant. You say, oh, great ideas. So these 3 dimensions I will put into my focus, but I will have some interviews next week. I look at the CVs, I prepare a little bit, I'm seeing, and then the candidates come, and I'm not doing an assessment. I'm just making an interview. But in my mind, there are the recommendations from Gábor what to do. So then comes the stereotypical questions like, oh, do you like change? What is your attitude to change? So if there is no assessment, what can do an interviewer do without making an assessment?
Well, first of all, I'm not against interviews. We are doing interviews basically every day. We have our own interview approach and methodology called behavior event interview style or interview methodology. But I'm really a fan of Daniel Kahneman. Maybe I've heard about this guy with the Nobel Prize. And he said that when it comes to interviews, even the best interviewers can create only 65% validity, which is like, it's still somewhat unsure and unpredictable what people will do after an interview. Even if you are an experienced interviewer, etc., it is not 100%. And as you can see, it is very far from 165. And if you take the level of the guessing, like 50% yes or no, it's not really bigger than that. So interviews has a certain limit, and especially when it comes to such skills, and such skills are easy to talk about, easy to philosophize. Like change for me, yes. The only stable thing in life is change. So I can give you several bullshit sentences. And then who knows my approach to change, what I will actually do in a situation that is unpredictable for myself, that is, a sudden change is approaching me or just happening around me. It is sometimes totally not connected what I will tell you for such a philosophical, methodological question, what change means for me. And the same is true for learning. Everybody will respond in a very positive way, like, learning is a lifelong something these times.
Yeah, even maybe prepared for the answers because it's so typical. So finally, we have a risk of selecting those candidates who are the best in interpreting the things and who prepared for the interview and prepared for the obvious questions. But let's say, okay, I am convinced that I shouldn't do only the interview. If I do kind of an assessment, a skill assessment, then what components should we put together? What makes it an assessment? Okay, we can keep part of the interview, either the beginning or the end. Do we need a psychology test? Depending on the situation, of course.
If you're really curious about my opinion on how to do a proper skill assessment, a full project, then you have to combine certain elements. So yes, as I've said, I'm not against interviews. I think interview is okay, but you have to know your limits, the limits of the interview. And I would say it's really important to have a real picture about someone, even if it's just online. It's good to see the person. Interview is great when you have to somehow check communication, because it is via communication. None of the tests will ever be that good to check communication, because when you are doing a test, you are putting some X's on a paper. It's great. I really believe in tests as well. But if you want to check communication, because communication is important in that position, or presentation or sales skills via communication, interview is something you shouldn't avoid. So you have to combine. And CVs are also there, but that's also something like a presentation for me. One picture, how the person can present himself or herself. And I would say you have to move on, and you have to use some more valid psychodiagnostical things. And I said things because yes, it can be a valid test, battery, which is really based on psychology, statistics, etc. And yes, you can use other methods as well when there are some observers, trained observers, who can do a proper assessment online, in person, live at the moment. And when it comes to important positions, I mean, the effect of the position is not like some dollars or euros or forints, but much bigger. then it's typical that companies are combining, like they have like 3 interviews, 2 tests and assessment center, because they have to know whom they are accepting and onboarding into the company, and the effect are sometimes enormous. So they have to do a very proper assessment because they have to do a very good decision. Yeah.
Yes. So the test can help of pointing out something which is I should further analyze in other exercises, right? So if it's something strange coming out, I can double check that.
Yep.
Is it
That's
really
also
is it
possible.
really around, or is there any contradiction or something like that? But as you typically assess people related to business, so you are not selecting doctors or
Correct.
I don't know, musicians, but these are business people. Of course, the most interesting thing that how would this person react in a situation where I like to place this person? So you make some kind of environment that they can prove they are capable. But I'm going to such a case. I expect that you want to check I'm confident. Then I will show confidence. So maybe you will select the best actors, no? Or what is your trick with this?
Yeah, there is a threat. Like there are some people who can display something. It's always there. But actually, when, for example, you are doing an assessment center, then we are actually playing with the length. Like even if you are just faking something or displaying a mask or something like that, I would say that if you have to do it for a day, it's not possible. This mask will drop down because after the second exercise, you will run out of fuel, and all these fake things will fall down because you will not have enough energy or cognitive capacity to trick through everything. Because maybe there are exercises, your attention is focused on that. You have to do calculations. You have to be on your toes, and then you will have no extra energy to keep up a mask in terms of confidence, motivation, learning, blah 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 bullshits. Then I will see the reality. So an assessment center is an extremely good way to deal with such, we call it impression management tendencies. So when people are actively managing the impressions other people can see about them. And yes, some people are much better in that than other people. It's actually a skill to manage your impressions. But at the end, when it comes to an assessment, it's valid, and we are on the same opinion that we somehow have to get rid of this impression management, because that's not the reality. Impression managers can do it for a limited amount of time. And it's also valid for the assessment part, and it's also valid for the real life. Like sooner or later, this mask will drop down because there will be stress, there will be deadlines, there will be other colleagues around. Who knows what the stress sources are for certain people? So sooner or later, impression management will stop. And then I'm really curious what comes after that. And that's the reality. That's what I would like to see, because I would like to employ people for a longer period of time, not just for 1 day or 2 days.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember some past projects that in sections you typically observe 2-3 skills at a time as the observer. Mm-hmm. But maybe the person who is attending this observation, they don't know what you are looking at. So maybe they try to react something which at that point you are not interested in. So sometimes it could be that it's like in the group case when you form a group or give the task. They think it's not part of the exercise. It's just a technicality, and in fact you are really interested in who is talking first, how they arrange the things among themselves. I'm just not talking about a self-run assessment. So it's also a trick that you can position things that these people who try to reflect to it, they don't know that this is not the thing you are looking at, in fact. Right?
Well, everything can be important. And when I take this example, who starts speaking in a group exercise, well, it is a point of observation. I usually note it down. It's not, taking everything like this is the most important, and the first person talking to the other group is the leader. No, but it's a point. It's something I would like to observe. So it's also important. And in fact, when it comes to a group exercise, I always tell to my colleagues and to my clients that the actual outcome, the result of the exercise, because maybe they have to solve a mathematical related problem, whatever, they have to investigate some clues and find out something, whether they can do it or not is secondary, to be honest. Because I would like to see the way they are working together. For a group exercise, that's the most important part. That's why I'm bringing them together, because that's the extra added value to the original exercise, that I can see them working together in the same time, in the same space, and how they react to others, how they relate to others, how they try to go through with their ideas, what is the role they are usually jumping in a group situation. And yes, because of that, who speaks first is an important thing for me. Or who is the last one? That's also important. And how they interact. Is it like someone talking to the paper or talking to the others? Because it's part of interpersonal sensitivity. Or am I just interrupting you again because I have something in my mind, or I have reached a conclusion and I don't care what we are talking about right now. I'm just interrupting you. Or whether the person is looking around, waits for someone to finish and then starts. Or how many questions are there? Because in a real group situation, if I'm really interested to others, then I will make some questions. And I can tell you that many people are not making any questions. And that's reality. That's the thing that will come out in reality later in a group situation, because they have to work in a group in the company later, because companies are about people working in a group. Smaller group, bigger groups, but sooner or later they have to face an interpersonal situation, and without making questions, without being interested in your ideas, in your view, etc., in your needs, then, well, I would say it's not okay in these times, because, as I told you at the beginning, social skills are becoming more and more important. And when it comes to social skills, asking questions, reflecting questions, is a very important behavioral anchor I'm looking for during an assessment center. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about technology. So if we talk about tests, I can understand technology because it's easier to analyze a test made on a computer screen or in a database than just a paper one. But what about the other exercises? Which are the parts, or can you tell a few examples where you opt for technology because it's better, the results, or more comprehensive, or so what are the cases, and what's the reason behind you use technology?
What I would like to add as well when it comes to technology, and I think it's important to mention when we are talking about assessments, is that the original idea is like I'm selecting someone and then onboard into the company. But in the 21st century, it's a two-way something. Yes, I'm taking someone in, and actually that person is taking us into his world. So every assessment is a situation about employer branding. And when it comes to technology, it's really something. The assessment process is the first point of contact with the company. A person is coming in. That's okay. The first thing is the advertisement, but actually, it's the first real contact point. I can see the company, and for me, imagine I'm attending to a position. I'm a candidate. The way you are doing the assessment, the technology, whether you are using it or not, or it's a modern one or not, is an important impression for me about the company itself. If it's a company using state-of-the-art technology, very modern things. Also, the lookout is very, okay. Then it gives me a very positive feeling about the company. It's employer branding. So using technology, especially when you would like to hire the newest generations who, started their life in a technologically advanced world, then it's really important what you can show them as the first exercise or the first contact point. And it has to be technologically advanced. Giving people a paper and pencil test these times is like this. You are killing your own employer brand because it's not modern enough. You have to. And there are other companies doing it in a very modern way, and then they will have the advantage. So that's something, an extra, I would say, I would like to mention with technology. But when it comes to your question, yeah, technology is also important because, well, it can also give us sometimes an extra benefit in terms of, computers are very fast. They can generate and analyze, of course, tons of data within a second, and maybe I can use it. I can derive some conclusions. Also, it has some possible disadvantages because, if the computer fails, then there is no one else to correct it. If I fail, maybe another person is sitting next to me in the interview, and the person can correct me in terms of my observations. So there are pros and cons together. But again, coming back to your question, technology is for me a great tool to map the real world. Because, when you are doing an assessment, you would like to see real behavior, not test behavior. When you are doing an assessment center, you would like to create an atmosphere that is actually mirroring reality for the person. And we are living in a technologically advanced world. We are doing, meetings, etc. online. We are working with different programs, technological programs like SAP, whatever. So that's reality. That's part of our normal environment. And that's why another reason I'm using technology during the assessment, because that's the reality for these people. That's what they will face. And I would like to create the same environment, because then I can check real skills and not test behavior or impression managed behavior. So that's also a very important reason I would like to use technology. Plus, and here comes the main reason, when it comes to such skills like analytical skills, complex sight or understanding, learning, change, then technology can give me a situation, an environment where these skills can really happen. Like, yes, we can talk about change, blah, blah, but technology can give me a situation when there is situation A, and then because of certain decisions, it changes to situation B. And it's reality. It's happening in front of the person, just like in real life. Because in real life, changes are happening. We are not just talking about changes or what will happen and no one knows what will happen. No, they are happening. And throughout that, I can really see the person, how the person is actually rating to change, what the person is reacting. Mm-hmm. And technology can give me this advantage and this opportunity. Also, analytical skills. Yes, I can give you papers with tons of data, but in an online environment, for example, with the help of technology, I can give you dynamic numbers, and that's much closer to reality. Because in reality, yes, there are some outputs and charts, but they are changing. They are ever changing.
Yeah, and what if you need to interpret your own data? You just made decisions, and you need to interpret the result of those decisions. I think it's also interesting. But of course, it's not a secret that you use simulations. You also use EDUardo simulation. But sometimes it's a little fear. Okay, we use a technology, and valuable time will be spent on onboarding, understanding the environment. But I know you do it super quick of starting the exercise. And I also know that some part of it you already use as an observation.
Yeah,
So what happens at the very beginning? You just open a computer, you give the screen. What happens next?
Yeah, actually, we believe that it's also part of our life. You have to understand things quickly. You have to start managing things quickly. Even if you don't know everything, even if you don't have the complex site at the beginning, no problem. But that's reality. We are facing such
Can we have a look at
situations.
one of the cases? Okay,
Great idea.
just like a
So
sneak peek into it, so not.
That's why I believe that it's better than giving 40 pages of documents to someone in assessment center and giving the person an hour or 55 minutes to go through the documents, understand the numbers, and create a presentation, because it's not dynamic enough, and that's actually not reality.
I'm clicking it now, so I'm just starting
react fast. And it's also part of learning. That's why I said, for me, it's much more important things you can learn and the way you are learning to survive in a system, to understand the system, the things behind, the connections, etc., compared to what you can tell me about learning in general and all these things. So
I'm entering into a situation here. I already got messages. This is what you said, that a lot of information coming to me. If I may go back a little bit, do you use the layout of the system or the introduction videos for people?
When it comes to an assessment center, we really push the person into deep waters, to be honest.
Okay, so you start a new simulation.
Yeah. Actually, yes. Before the simulation, before the day, I would say, we usually give them a very quick intro, like, yes, you have to use an online something. This is it, with some screenshots. Yes, to make the person a little bit more comfortable about the agenda, and then yes, this is a surface with buttons, menus, etc. Some screenshots, and then into deep waters, there is a very quick story to initiate this fictitious environment we are creating for the simulation and for the whole assessment. Again, just to make it more real, just to create a flow feeling in order to avoid
starting what you say. I just start this simulation you use frequently. And I remember that the beginning of this, here's a little introduction. It's in Hungarian language.
Yeah.
So that's like a quick info, right?
A very quick, as you can see, and it's not more. A very quick intro about the situation. Also a very quick intro about the goals, because it's also important, the goals the person have to reach during the simulation. That's why they are actually paddling. And sometimes you can work with the goals, like bigger, higher, stronger goals will create a bit more tension, a bit more stress. More complex goals might also create more complexity, more stress. So you can play with that in order to adjust the appropriate stress level or difficulty level for the player, for the candidate. Because obviously, when we are selecting for a higher level position, then you have to create a much more complex situation, which means that we are giving more menu items in terms of goals for the person. It's not just the profit you have to pay attention during the simulation. You have to pay attention to the technology level, the churn rate, the number of subscribers, the image, etc., etc., etc. Because that's again reality for a higher level leader. It's not just one thing they have to pursue. It's a set of things they have to somehow balance and optimize and win in the situation. And as I've said, deep waters, very quick intro, and then please start doing it. Voice up your thoughts. For us, it's really important. That's how you have to imagine that actually the person is playing, working in front of us. I can also see his or her decisions on the screen. Like here, the person is entering $55, 7,200 euros, or saying yes to this development or no to that, changing the headcount. So I can see what's actually happening. And I always ask the people, the candidates, to voice up the thoughts, because I would like to hear what is happening here. That's the analytical skill. That's the reaction to change. whether there is a strategy or there is no strategy at all. Is it like a panic because something happened, or is it something like, okay, sometimes these things happen, let's have a plan? Or is it actually a very sophisticated planning, or the person is just really jumping in and doing some experiments and then gathering information and then working with that information? So as you can see, there are very different styles. And these are real styles people show when they are facing a problem, a situation, or a goal. And that's what I would like to see, I would like to grab, instead of any bullshit, trends, whatever people usually talk about when it's just simple discussion.
Can you recall a case when at the beginning of the exercise you felt, oh, this is a good candidate, and as you progressed with the simulation, you started to be more and more disappointed, and what caused this? So,
I can remember a situation. Actually, for us, the person was a new person, so it was the surprise was not on our side, but on the client side, and it was a very good example that it's really worthy to use a simulation, because sometimes it changes the client, it changes your approach about the candidate. So the candidate was a good one. Based on the interviews, he had a relatively okay, I would say very okay picture, because the guy was very confident, very ambitious, and because of that, of course, you can imagine, okay, it's part of impression management. He managed to create a very good impression in terms of the interviewers, in terms of decision makers. So he was moving to a yes, onboarding, yes, come. And then we did the assessment center with the simulation, and then the company and we could see the way the person is working with the simulation. And then we could see that, okay, the confidence is still there, but actually it's an empty confidence. Like there is nothing behind. It's just like the person can show this because the person has learned somehow.
So confidently interpreting the bad results without even realizing that this is bad result.
Or without any interpretation, confidently jumping into chaos. And for the company, of course, it wasn't really okay, because they wanted to start a new branch. I think it was a new product or something, a product line, and they wanted to do a somewhat more cautious approach. They had plans, they had ideas, they have already failed once or twice. So they had the experience how it feels when someone is jumping into it. And confidence was, of course, important, because it's important when you are starting with something. But next to that, it was important to see that it's a blind confidence. And the person has this approach, like jump into, let's see what is happening, and then fix.
And there's another case. There's another case. When you you wanted to check the risk-taking capability, and I'm thinking of where there are the markets. So as a first step, you need to select your playground, and it's up to you, but then you stick to that. And some of the markets are encouraging but difficult. Some of them are more stable, but not much to do there. And after that, they stick to that. Can you tell a few words about what you can see in these situations?
Yeah. So you are talking about the simulation where you have to select the countries you are entering in the simulation. And there are plenty of options. It's not like A or B and that's all, or maybe C. We have plenty of options.
Good result, as I understand.
That's also important compared to paper and pencil things. That's why I really like the simulation, because there are no good ways, there are no golden way or ultimate solution. There are plenty of ways you can make a successful business in the simulation, and it's part of that. I mean, your starting choices about the markets. And again, I would like to always hear the reasoning. why the person is selecting this country or that country, whether the person is doing a real assessment of the country and the opportunities with the country, or is just a simple blind picking this country and that country because I had a vacation in that country, so select, I don't know, Dominica or whatever. So again, strategy, selection, choices are really important for me to see how the person will choose in reality. Because choices will tell me the preferences of someone. And again, how is the line of thoughts in the background? So I would like to hear the reasons and the whys. And then, of course, to see it through the whole simulation, whether the person is following or not. Because there are people who can give you an excellent selection at the beginning with nice reasonings, etc., and then doing something completely something else during the simulation. Like the person tells me that I'm selecting these well-developed, nice, technologically advanced countries because I would like to introduce a fancy, high-level, tool or service to the market. A very high level, absolutely extra thing. And then I can see that the person is giving a low price level, price tag to that service. And then it's not a premium service. Come on, what the hell is happening? And sometimes that's what we can see, that they have some great thoughts at the beginning. And then when they are facing real data, dynamic data, they completely lose and they go into micromanagement and they completely forget about the strategy, about the overarching things, and they are just micromanaging, like, dollars or euros. However, the whole company is about 100,000 euros. And imagine such a situation that your fancy candidate, you are confident that this is my person. So you can see that the person is working with, like, yes, here I can save $25. Yeah, and there let's get rid of one person, which is actually like $2,000 or $3,000 or euro dollars in the simulation. Why the company is making money in terms of 100,000 euros. And that's how the person is reacting to a change, a negative news to the market with such micromanagement. Of course,
can it be true that the self-evaluation you request at the end or during may be the most important part of the assessment? So how they react to their own results, actions, how they can.
We always ask that at the beginning because it's also possible that sometimes we make mistakes. But when we can see these mistakes, it's a real positive, ray of light at the end. So for me, it's always part of every assessment at the end or after the exercises. Let's have a reflection with at least 2 questions. What was good and what are the things you would like to do in a different way if you have the opportunity to do it again, if you can go back in time, and I'm always hunting for critical things, but constructive, critical items the person can mention about himself or herself. Yes, I did that there, and I think it wasn't good enough. Yes, I made a mistake. I've lost the thread. I've forgotten about my strategy for that period. So these are very positive things if I hear them. But guess what? Many people are totally satisfied with their performance. Even if they are micromanaging, they have an agenda why it was useful and why it will be useful for you, their new employer. But come on. So sometimes it's okay if you like to select someone who is really checking every data, every piece and bits, and sometimes that's the case. Then it's okay. But in recent I would say assessments where companies are looking for leaders with great analytical skills, fast reactions, understanding, etc. Well, they are not looking for micromanagers. And then seeing like this happening in front of me about my best candidate, then they always told us that, come on, thank you very much that you have showed this to us, and then we could avoid another person who is a micromanager.
Okay, I just see how time is flying. So now we are getting to the end of that. I'd like to ask the audience, if you have a question, just please put it into the LinkedIn Live, and then we will see it and we will reflect to this until you think about these questions. I know you operate many times with in-tray exercises. If I'm a candidate,
Right.
and if I prepare for it, do you think it's a good tactic to answer all the in-trays in the most detailed way, or what is the trick here? Selection, capability of selecting what is really important, or?
Well, sometimes, depends on the skills we want to see. And of course, it depends on the intro exercise. Like if in the intro exercise, there is a client writing you an email and you have to address it, you have to answer it, then it's about client orientation. I can see the way you are approaching a client, the way you are answering, whether again you are making any questions, what you are actually doing with the problem. What's your approach? Go away, have someone solve it, go into micro things, or there are plenty of ways. So I can see how the person is approaching it. And sometimes it's important for me to see the words as well, how the person is creating the sentences for this imagined client, whether it's a straightforward, a kind something. It depends on which personality I would like to have in the company, in the position. And sometimes both, I mean, the straightforward, the honest, or the very kind, conflict averse can be okay. But again, I can see the approach, and that's the important for me. I can see the dynamic in real time, because again, people might tell me this and then they will do something completely different in reality. I've seen that several times, that we can talk about things because we have seen films, we have seen other examples around us, we had other colleagues. So sometimes I know what I should tell you, but it is not the same as I will actually do in a real situation. And with an intro exercise in a simulation, again, I can see it in a dynamic way happening in front of me.
Mm-hmm. Now let's look at the future. So if I just say what changes in the industry in skill assessment, and what kind of trends can you see now? Oh, I know it's difficult to say what will happen, but what are the trends? What do you feel like? Where are we heading?
Well, I would say that things we are experiencing right now will exaggerate. So it will still increase. It's not the end. It's not the peak we have reached with such a need for such skills, as I've said, to be a quick decision maker, to understand, to have a nice self-reflection, to be able to learn from your mistakes. For example, we had a project this summer. The company was selecting the new C-level leaders of the future, and they wanted to grab people without any leadership experience, because they wanted to have clear people, clear tables, and they were hunting for such skills because they think that the next level of C-level leadership within 5 to 10 years should forget about what we right now doing as leaders in many companies, in many positions. And they were really looking for just this set of skills on an extremely high level. As I've said, analytical things, learning, understanding, change management, goal orientation. I can tell you that none of these are totally new, but I would say that the amount, the importance is getting higher and higher and higher.
And from this basis, if you can request from the technology providers, which areas do you want these companies like ours to further develop, to help you to do better assessments? What do you miss? What do you expect to happen?
Well, I would say, and I'm also answering it this question from a client perspective. This customizability is really important. Again, because of employer branding and because of the need to create a real situation, a real atmosphere. And companies are different from other companies. And of course, with the simulation, there are certain items that are set and stable. But if there are some opportunities to customize this, to add an extra layer, to focus on this or that a little bit, and to add logos, really important, guys, really important. That's something that will be really, really useful. Or to give this opportunity to customize the in-tray exercises. Because that's again where I can see that people are like jumping on it. Or yes, this is it. I would like to see, because I can tell you I can quote you tons of emails our people will see every day. Let's see how this new candidate will respond to this email. So let's put it there. Let's create a situation where a client is angry. Let's put a situation when your coworker are indecisive. Let's put a situation with a problem. Something has happened and there is money going out from the company. And what should be the reaction? So
Okay.
this customizability is important. Yeah.
I think you partly getting this service, so there are some examples for it. Of course, the new technology elements I can mention, like the AI based chatbots used in like in-tray communication, where also you got an answer and it's based on some simulated communication, for example. So there are new elements definitely coming in as well. And finally, just like if there is an assessment, do I feel well that you really plan it from beginning to an end? So it's not like a canned version you take from the shelf and then let's use it. I always feel like you reuse certain elements, but always there's a kind of design in that connected to the given position.
Yeah. So maybe from my descriptions, it might look like you can do it tomorrow and it's super easy, but actually it's a planning. So we have some off-the-shelf solutions, because sometimes that's what we face. Clients come in and they would like to do the assessment 2 days later, and then you don't have the time and the pleasure to do the whole planning. And of course, in such a situation, they are more or less okay with box-like exercises, etc. So that's also possible, but actually even the off-the-shelf things were planned at a time. And it's really a complex planning project, because it's not just about the simulation when it comes to an assessment center. The simulation is the core exercise, the starting exercise. It also creates the fictitious environment that provides the flow feeling, the feeling of reality. But usually there are other exercises built in, and I'm not just talking about the in-tray ones. There are other presentation, role play, also based on the simulation, the same story. Sometimes you can also use the numbers you have produced as a candidate in the simulation, because I maybe will challenge you in a situation as your superior or as your peer or as a client later on. And because I've seen the numbers, I can totally play along those numbers, and I'm expecting a real answer. So you have to be aware of the things you have created. But that's also a great thing in the simulation, that it creates this ownership in people. Like, they did decisions, then they had outcomes, then they had decisions again, and that's what they have created at the end is their product in terms of results. And it's a much stronger ownership than compared to a pencil and paper exercise.
Yeah, I think it's a great end thoughts for that as a message. So today, thank you very much again, Gábor, for joining us. And those who are interested in your company, here is the website, so they can look around, see the team, see the locations, 7 countries, and so on. So today we looked at what do we assess, what skill assessment is aiming, what kind of exercises we do, why it's better than just a simple interview. And also we see technology using it, examples for that, and also a little outlook for the future. So thank you very much again of joining us, and we will find other interesting topics for the future for the expert talk series, and have a great day.
Thank you.